Stop drinking plain water at night. I know that sounds strange. Water is good for you. Staying hydrated is important. It's what everyone recommends. But if you're over 60 and you're waking up 2 times, 3 times, sometimes 4 times every single night, that glass of plain water could be part of the problem. And I know what you're thinking. If I drink anything at night, I'll just have to get up to use the bathroom even more. And the answer to that is no. Not if you choose the right kind of drink, at the right time, in the right way. Because when you do, you can still sleep deeply through the night, undisturbed, rested, the way you haven't slept in years. My name is Dr. William Lee. Before I was a physician, I was just an aging body with restless nights, exhausted mornings, and questions that nobody seemed to be able to answer. I had to experiment on myself to find out what actually worked. And what I discovered changed not just my sleep, but my understanding of what aging does to the sleeping body and what we can do about it. I had already applied everything I knew about water timing. I was taking in the majority of my fluids in the morning and early afternoon. I had set a strict 2-hour cutoff before bed. The number of times I was waking up each night dropped significantly. But my sleep, it still wasn't truly deep. I was still waking up tired. My mind still wasn't clear in the mornings. And after many years studying the relationship between nutrition, cardiovascular health, and the body's defense systems, I knew the direct connection between poor sleep and disease. I had seen it in my patients for decades. I had written about it, I had lectured about it at Harvard, and presented it to policymakers at the NIH. But now I was seeing it in my own body, night after night. And that was deeply uncomfortable for someone who was supposed to have the answers. And that was when I realized something that changed everything. The problem wasn't the water. The problem was what plain water was and wasn't doing inside my body during the night. You see, when you're over 60, your body undergoes a series of biological shifts during sleep that are fundamentally different from what happens in a younger body. And most people, including most doctors, don't fully appreciate how profound those shifts are, or how directly they're influenced by what you consume in the hours before bed. So, before I tell you what to drink, I need to explain what is actually happening inside you when you lie down at night. Because once you understand the mechanism, the solution makes complete sense. And things that make sense are things you actually do and keep doing. The first thing you need to understand is what happens to your blood chemistry during the night as you age. In a healthy younger adult, the body maintains relatively stable hydration and electrolyte balance through the night. The kidneys slow their urine production during sleep, a process regulated by a hormone called antidiuretic hormone, or ADH, and most people can sleep 6 to 8 hours without any urgency to urinate. But after 60, 2 things happen that disrupt this system significantly. First, ADH production declines. The signal that tells your kidneys to conserve water and reduce urine output during sleep becomes weaker. Your kidneys keep working at a higher rate through the night, producing more urine than they should during sleep hours, which is why so many people over 60 find themselves waking up urgently to use the bathroom even when they haven't consumed anything for hours. This condition has a medical name, nocturnal polyuria, and it affects the majority of adults over 60 to some degree. It is not a disease, it is biology. But it is biology that can be meaningfully influenced by what you do before bed. Second, and this is the part that most people don't know about, after 60, your body's ability to regulate electrolyte balance during sleep becomes less precise. Electrolytes, sodium, potassium, magnesium, calcium, are the minerals that govern electrical signaling throughout your entire body. They control how your neurons fire. They regulate your heart rhythm. They determine how deeply your muscles can relax, and they play a direct, documented role in sleep architecture. The cycling of your brain through the different stages of sleep, from light sleep to deep slow-wave sleep to REM sleep and back again. When your electrolyte balance is off during the night, and in older adults, it frequently is, your brain cannot complete those cycles properly. You reach the edge of deep sleep, and something pulls you back toward wakefulness. You cycle through light sleep repeatedly without ever descending into the truly restorative stages. You wake up in the morning having technically been in bed for 7 or 8 hours, but feeling like you barely slept. Because in terms of the sleep that actually restores your brain, repairs your tissues, consolidates your memories, and regulates your immune system, you barely did. And here is where plain water becomes part of the problem rather than the solution. When you drink plain water in the evening, especially in larger quantities, you are adding fluid volume to your system without adding any electrolytes. This actually dilutes the electrolyte concentration in your blood, which your kidneys then respond to by excreting more fluid to restore balance. So not only are you increasing urine volume, which means more trips to the bathroom, you are also potentially worsening the very electrolyte imbalance that is fragmenting your sleep in the first place. Plain water at night, for someone over 60 with already compromised sleep, can be actively counterproductive. And almost no one is telling people this. So what should you drink instead? Let me tell you exactly what I discovered and exactly why it works at a biological level. The answer is a warm, specifically formulated herbal drink consumed approximately 45 minutes before bed. Not a supplement, not a medication. A real food-based beverage that you can make in your own kitchen in under 5 minutes using ingredients that are backed by some of the most compelling sleep research of the past 2 decades. And I'm going to walk you through every ingredient, what it does, and why it matters for the aging sleep system specifically. The base of this drink is warm tart cherry juice, diluted, not full strength. Tart cherries, specifically the Montmorency variety, are one of the only known dietary sources of melatonin. Not the synthetic melatonin you find in supplement form at the pharmacy, which is typically dosed far too high and can actually disrupt your natural melatonin rhythm over time, but naturally occurring melatonin, present in a food matrix alongside dozens of other bioactive compounds that appear to enhance its absorption and effectiveness. A study published in the European Journal of Nutrition found that adults who consumed tart cherry juice twice daily, morning and evening, experienced significant improvements in sleep duration and sleep quality compared to a placebo group. The effect was particularly pronounced in older adults. And the mechanism is not just the melatonin. Tart cherries are also rich in compounds called anthocyanins and procyanidins, which reduce inflammatory signaling in the brain, and neuroinflammation is increasingly recognized as one of the key drivers of sleep disruption in aging adults. When the brain is inflamed, even at a low chronic level, it cannot properly regulate its own sleep-wake cycles. The anthocyanins in tart cherry act on this pathway directly, but here's the critical distinction. You use tart cherry juice diluted with warm water, approximately 1 part juice to 3 parts warm water. This is important for 2 reasons. First, full-strength tart cherry juice contains a significant amount of natural sugar, and consuming concentrated sugar before bed raises blood glucose and insulin in ways that fragment sleep. Diluting it significantly reduces that glycemic impact while preserving the beneficial compounds. Second, the warm temperature of the drink itself triggers a physiological response that supports sleep onset. The warming of your core temperature, followed by the subsequent cooling as you stop drinking, is one of the signals your body uses to initiate the transition toward sleep. Warm liquids before bed leverage this mechanism in a way that cold liquids cannot. To this base, I add one specific and critically important ingredient, magnesium. Not in supplement tablet form, but dissolved directly into the warm drink as magnesium glycinate or magnesium citrate powder, both of which are highly bioavailable forms that dissolve easily in liquid. A quarter teaspoon, approximately 150 to 200 milligrams, is the target dose. Magnesium is the mineral I would call the most underappreciated sleep nutrient in existence. It is required for the activation of GABA receptors in the brain, GABA being the primary inhibitory neurotransmitter that quiets neural activity and allows the brain to transition into sleep. Without adequate magnesium, GABA receptors cannot function optimally, and the brain remains in a state of low-level hyperarousal even when you are exhausted. You lie there, your body is tired, your mind keeps going. You fall asleep and wake 90 minutes later for no apparent reason. This is often magnesium deficiency at work. And here is the deeply inconvenient fact about magnesium and aging. Magnesium deficiency is extraordinarily common in adults over 60 for reasons that are both dietary and physiological. Magnesium absorption in the gut declines with age. The kidneys excrete more magnesium in older adults. Many common medications, including diuretics, proton pump inhibitors for acid reflux, and certain blood pressure medications, actively deplete magnesium. And the foods that are richest in magnesium, dark leafy greens, nuts, seeds, whole grains, tend to be underrepresented in the diets of many older adults for a variety of practical reasons. A randomized controlled trial published in the Journal of Research in Medical Sciences found that magnesium supplementation in elderly adults significantly improved sleep onset time, sleep efficiency, sleep duration, and early morning awakening, essentially every meaningful measure of sleep quality. The effect size was clinically meaningful, and yet magnesium is rarely discussed in the context of sleep by most primary care physicians, who are far more likely to reach for a prescription sleep aid that carries significant risks of dependency, cognitive effects, and fall risk in older adults. The third component of this drink is something that might surprise you, a small amount of raw honey, and I want to explain the specific mechanism here, because this is not about sweetness or flavor. It is about brain metabolism during sleep. Your brain, unlike most other organs, cannot store meaningful amounts of glucose. It depends on a continuous supply from the bloodstream. During the night, as you fast for 7 or 8 hours, blood glucose gradually declines. When it drops low enough, your brain registers this as a mild stress signal and activates your stress response system, releasing small amounts of cortisol and adrenaline to trigger glucose release from the liver. This micro-stress response, happening silently in the middle of the night, is one of the most common and most overlooked causes of early morning awakening and light, fragmented sleep in older adults. You wake at 3 or 4 in the morning for seemingly no reason. This is often why. Raw honey has a specific and unique carbohydrate profile that addresses this mechanism directly. It contains a particular ratio of fructose to glucose that, when consumed in a small amount before bed, replenishes liver glycogen stores, the liver's glucose reserve, in a slow, sustained way that provides the brain with a stable fuel supply through the night without causing the blood sugar spike and crash that would come from consuming refined sugar or even most fruit juices. Just half a teaspoon of raw honey in the drink is sufficient, not more. The dose matters. Too much, and you create the very glucose spike you're trying to avoid. Just half a teaspoon, dissolved into the warm, diluted tart cherry base, provides the liver fuel your brain needs to stay calm through the night. And the fourth and final component is one that I added last, after reading a body of research that I found genuinely compelling: a small pinch, literally a pinch, perhaps a 1/16 of a teaspoon, of finely ground ashwagandha root powder. Ashwagandha is an adaptogenic herb that has been used in Ayurvedic medicine for thousands of years, and it has recently become one of the most studied herbs in evidence-based sleep research. The mechanism is its effect on cortisol, specifically its ability to reduce evening cortisol levels and blunt the cortisol awakening response. Cortisol is your primary stress hormone, and it follows a natural daily rhythm. It should be low in the evening and at its lowest point in the early hours of sleep, then rise sharply in the morning to wake you up. But in many older adults, particularly those dealing with chronic stress, chronic illness, poor sleep, or metabolic dysregulation, this rhythm becomes disrupted. Evening cortisol stays too high. The brain remains alert and vigilant when it should be winding down. Sleep onset takes longer. Sleep is lighter. You wake earlier than you want to. A double-blind, randomized, placebo-controlled study published in the journal Medicine found that adults who took ashwagandha extract experienced significant improvements in sleep quality, sleep onset latency, total sleep time, and sleep efficiency compared to placebo. And a more recent meta-analysis confirmed these findings across multiple studies. The effect is modest but consistent, and it compounds over time, meaning the longer you use it, the more effectively it normalizes your cortisol rhythm. A small pinch of the powder dissolved into the warm drink contributes meaningfully to this effect, without any of the risks associated with pharmaceutical sleep aids. So the complete drink looks like this: 2 to 3 ounces of tart cherry juice, diluted into roughly 8 ounces of warm water, not boiling, warm, the temperature of a comfortable bath, a 1/4 teaspoon of magnesium glycinate or citrate powder dissolved in, half a teaspoon of raw honey stirred through, and a small pinch of ashwagandha root powder. That is the entire recipe. It takes less than 5 minutes to prepare. The ingredients are available at any health food store and most larger supermarkets, and the combined biological effect of these 4 components on the aging sleep system is, based on everything I have seen in the research and experienced in my own body, genuinely remarkable. Now I want to talk about timing and ritual, because these are not minor details. They are actually part of the mechanism. The drink should be consumed 40 to 50 minutes before your intended sleep time. Not right before bed, not 2 hours before, 40 to 50 minutes. This is because the melatonin compounds in the tart cherry and the magnesium both require time to be absorbed and to begin acting on their respective receptor systems. If you drink it too close to bed, you don't get the full benefit. If you drink it too early, the window of effect may begin to close before you're actually lying down. The ritual of preparing and drinking this beverage matters more than most people realize, because it functions as a behavioral cue, a consistent signal to your nervous system that sleep is approaching. Your brain is extraordinarily sensitive to patterns and associations. When you perform the same sequence of actions at the same time every evening, your nervous system begins to anticipate what comes next and starts preparing your physiology for sleep before you've even finished drinking. Cortisol begins to drop. Core body temperature begins its downward shift. Melatonin release begins to ramp up. This conditioned response is not trivial. It is one of the mechanisms underlying the effectiveness of cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia, which is the most evidence-based, non-pharmaceutical treatment for chronic sleep problems we have. So the ritual is: dim the lights in your home about an hour before bed. Put your phone face down or in another room. Prepare this drink. Sit somewhere comfortable without screens and drink it slowly over 10 to 15 minutes. Read something gentle or sit quietly or have a calm conversation, and then go to bed at the same time every night. The same time every night, including weekends. Sleep timing consistency is one of the most powerful regulators of your circadian rhythm, and circadian rhythm disruption is one of the primary drivers of age-related sleep deterioration. The drink is one piece of the puzzle. The ritual and the consistency are the frame that holds the puzzle together. I want to address something directly because I know it will come up. Some of you are on medications, blood pressure medications, heart medications, diabetes medications, thyroid medications, and you're wondering whether any of these ingredients interact with your prescriptions. The honest answer is that for the vast majority of people, at these doses, the interactions are minimal or non-existent. Magnesium at 150 to 200 milligrams is well within the range of what you'd get from a normal diet and is unlikely to cause issues for most people. Ashwagandha at a pinch is a far lower dose than what is used in any of the clinical trials. Tart cherry juice diluted to this degree is essentially a very mild food. But I am your doctor in this video, not your personal physician, and I want to be clear. If you are on multiple medications, particularly medications for thyroid conditions, autoimmune conditions, or blood thinners, please have a brief conversation with your doctor before adding anything new to your evening routine. That is just good medical practice, and it is the advice I would give any of my own patients. I also want to talk about what to expect in terms of timeline, because managing expectations is part of good medical communication, and I don't want you to give up too soon, because you expected an overnight transformation. In the first 3 to 5 nights, most people notice an improvement in how they feel when they wake up, a subtle but real sense of having slept more deeply, even if the number of nighttime awakenings hasn't dramatically changed yet. This is the magnesium effect beginning to work on sleep architecture. By the end of the first week to 10 days, most people begin to see a reduction in nighttime awakenings, particularly the 2 to 4 a.m. waking that is associated with the blood sugar dip I described earlier. The liver glycogen replenishment from the honey is working on that mechanism. By 3 to 4 weeks of consistent use, the cortisol regulating effects of the ashwagandha become more pronounced, and many people report that their overall sleep quality, the subjective feeling of how rested they are, has improved substantially. I tracked my own sleep during this period using a wearable device, and the data was striking. My deep sleep percentage, which had been running at roughly 9 to 11% of total sleep time, well below the healthy adult target of 20% or more, climbed steadily over 6 weeks to consistently above 18%. My nighttime awakenings dropped from an average of 3 to 4 per night to 1 or fewer, and most importantly, my morning cognitive clarity, the feeling of actually being present and sharp when I woke up, rather than dragging myself through the first 2 hours of the day, returned in a way it hadn't in years. That was what I noticed most, not just sleeping longer, but waking up as though sleep had actually done something for me, because that is what deep, truly restorative sleep does. It consolidates memory and learning. It clears metabolic waste from the brain through the glymphatic system, a recently discovered drainage system that only operates during deep sleep, and that is responsible for clearing the amyloid proteins associated with Alzheimer's disease. It regulates leptin and ghrelin, the hunger hormones, which is why poor sleep makes you hungrier and more likely to crave high-sugar, high-fat foods the following day. It repairs and regenerates tissues throughout the body. It calibrates your immune system. It regulates your cardiovascular system. Sleep is not passive downtime. It is one of the most metabolically active and biologically essential states your body can be in. And when you are over 60 and your sleep is fragmented and shallow night after night, the cumulative biological cost is enormous in ways that go far beyond just feeling tired. I spent years in medicine watching patients whose health was deteriorating in ways that couldn't be fully explained by their diagnosed conditions or their medications. And increasingly, when I looked carefully at their sleep histories, the picture became clear. Poor sleep was not just a symptom of their health problems, it was a driver of them. It was accelerating their cognitive decline. It was undermining their immune function. It was dysregulating their metabolism in ways that made their cardiovascular risk harder to manage. And when we addressed the sleep, really addressed it, not just with a pill that knocked them out, but with a genuine improvement in sleep quality and architecture, other things began to improve too. That is not anecdote, that is biology. So I want to close by asking you to try this for 30 days, not as a permanent commitment, not as a radical life overhaul, just 30 days of making this drink every night at the same time, as part of a consistent pre-sleep ritual. 30 days of giving your body the specific biological inputs it needs to do what it was designed to do. To cycle through deep, restorative sleep, to repair itself, to wake you up genuinely rested and present and ready for the day. That is not a luxury. That is a foundation, and you deserve it. Write down how you sleep this week before you start. Note how many times you wake up. Note how you feel when you get out of bed in the morning, then start the drink, and in 30 days, compare. Let your own body be the evidence. And if what I shared today was useful to you, if something clicked, if you're going to try this, if you know someone over 60 who is struggling with sleep and needs to hear this, please take 1 second and hit the like button. It is the simplest way to help this information reach the people who need it. And if you want to keep receiving honest, science-based, practical health guidance that goes beyond what most doctors have time to tell you in a standard appointment, subscribe to this channel right now and turn on your notifications. I have much more to share with you about sleep, about nutrition, about the biology of aging, and how to work with it rather than against it. I'll see you in the next video.